We are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and we are continuing our review of the book from the previous video, Paradise Found, the Cradle of the Human Race at the North Pole, a study of the primitive world by William Fairfield Warren, 1833 to 1929. And we'll start off from where we left. Results of Explorers, page 9. And just a reminder, and men there beyond say that all the sweet waters of the world above a belief take their beginning from the well of paradise, and go out of that, and out of that well all waters come and go. And there's a footnote indication here. And it reads, Early Travels in Palestine, edited by Thomas Wright, London, 1848, page 276. 2. Even Moundeville, whose paradise, as we have seen, was still farther to the east, found here a foundation of youth whose head spring was in paradise. Toward the head of that forest is the city of Colombo, and above the city is a great mountain, also clept Palombi, and of that mount the city could actually be Kiti if it's in Spanish, not really sure, had this name. And at the foot of that mount is a fair well and a grate that hath odour and savour of all spices. And at every hour of the day he changes his odour and his savour diversely. It's Old English by the look of it. It's quite hard to read and pronounce probably to many. And who's so drunk 3 times fasting of that water of that well, he is full of all manner sickness that he hath. Don't know what that's supposed to mean. He has something like all manner of sickness. And they that dwelleth there, or dwell there, and drunk often of that well, they never have sickness, and they seem always young. It's kind of a weird word, semen for seem. Okay, we'll repeat that again. And they that dwelleth there and drinketh often of that well, they never have sickness, and they seem always young. What was that before that? And whoso drinketh 3 times fasting of that water of that well, he is who, maybe that's like full of all manner of sickness that he has, or else he's overcome it all. It's really, really hard to understand, read and understand. This person says they have drunk of 3 or 4 sites, and zit, don't know what that's supposed to be. He thinks he fears the better, he feels way better. Some men clipping, don't know what that is. Must be like cling to the well of youth. For they that offer drunkenness thereafter seem always youngly, or young and lively, or living without sickness. And men saying that the well comes out of paradise, and therefore it is so virtuous. Hopefully that makes sense. It was just as hard for us to read as you to understand it. Go back and check this because it suddenly started on somebody's name. Okay. Various writers and map makers of the same age seem very evidently to have identified the paradise of Genesis with the island of Ceylon in India. Even to this day, a mountain near the centre of the island bears the name of Adam's Peak. According to Mohammedan tradition, this was only so called because it was the place where Adam alighted when cast out of the true celestial paradise in heaven. Nevertheless, Christian tradition or legend long lingered about Ceylon as the genuine site of primitive Eden. In entire accord with this view is the remarkable story of Prince Eirik, as told in an Icelandic saga of the 14th century. Mr. Baring Gould, in a style not very reverent, has summarised the tale as follows. Eirik was the son of Thrand, king of Drontheim, and having taken upon him a vow to explore the deathless land, he went to Denmark, where he picked up a friend of the same name as himself. They then went to Constantinople and called upon the emperor, who held a long conversation with them, which is duly reported, relative to the truths of Christianity in the sight of the deathless land, which, he assures them, is nothing more nor less than paradise. The world, said the monarch, who had not forgotten his geography since he left school, is precisely 180,000 stages round, about 1 million English miles, and it is not propped up on posts, not a bit. It is supported by the power of God, and the distance between earth and heaven is 100,045 miles. Another manuscript reads 9382 miles. The difference is immaterial. It's not that important. It's not an issue. And round about the earth is a big sea called ocean. And what's to the south of the earth? Asked Iraq. Oh, there is the end of the world, and that is India. And pray, where am I to find the deathless land? That lies paradise. I suppose you mean, well, it lies slightly east of India. Having obtained this information, the two Iraqs started furnished with letters from the Greek emperor. They traversed Syria and took ship, probably at Balsora, to reach India. They proceeded on their journey on horseback till they came to a dense forest, the gloom of which was so great through the interlacing of the boughs that even by day the stars could be observed twinkling, as though they were seen from the bottom of a well. On emerging from the forest, the two Iraqs came upon a strait separating them from a beautiful land, which was unmistakably paradise, and the Danish Iraq, intent on displaying his scriptural knowledge, pronounced the strait to be the river Pishon. This was crossed by a stone bridge guarded by a dragon. Okay, it might get a bit fantastical there, mythical, or it could be actual fact. The Danish Iraq, deterred by the prospect of an encounter with this monster, refused to advance and even endeavoured to persuade his friend to give up the attempt to enter paradise as hopeless, after that they had come within sight of the favoured land. But the Norseman deliberately walked sword in hand into the maw of the dragon, and the next moment, to his infinite surprise and delight, found himself liberated from the gloom of the monster's interior and safely placed in paradise. The land was most beautiful, and the grass as gorgeous as purple. It was studded with flowers and was traversed by honey rills. The land was extensive and level, so that there was not to be seen mountain or hill, and the sun shone cloudless, without night and darkness. The calm of the air was great, and there was but a feeble murmur of wind, and that which there was breathed redolent with the odour of blossoms. After a short walk, Eric observed what certainly must have been a remarkable object, namely a tower or steeple self-suspended in the air, without any support whatever, though access might be had to it by means of a slender ladder. By this Eric ascended into a loft of the tower, and found there an excellent cold collation prepared for him. After having partaken of this, he went to sleep, and in vision beheld and conversed with his guardian angel, who promised to conduct him back to his fatherland, but to come for him again and fetch him away from it forever at the expiration of the 10th year after his return to Drontheim. Iraq then retraced his steps to India, unmolested by the dragon, which did not affect any surprise at having to disgorge him, and indeed which seems to have been, notwithstanding his looks, but a harmless and passive dragon. After a tedious journey of 7 years, Eric reached his native land, where he related his adventures to the confusion of the heathen and to the delight and edification of the faithful. And in the 10th year, at break of day, as Eric went to prayer, God's spirit caught him away, and he was never seen again in this world. So here ends all we have to say of him. Here we get further than with Columbus, but however beautiful and incredible the story of Eden exploration may have been 500 years ago, we now know that the only paradise in Ceylon is a symbolic Buddhist one. A footnote below states, the Buddhists of Ceylon have endeavoured to transform the essential mountain, the Vakuta, peak of the gods, into Meru, and to find 4 streams descending from it, sides to correspond with the rivers of the paradise. Aubrey, and it's in French there, something about the species of man. Amiens, 1858, page 118, and so forth. Here we get further than with Columbus, but however beautiful, incredible the story of Eden exploration may have been 500 years ago, we now know that only the paradise in Ceylon, India, is a symbolic Buddhist one, as far removed from the primitive Garden of Genesis as Roman Catholic Calvarios in South America are from the primitive Calvary of the crucifixion. Moreover, even the scribes of 500 years ago, however credulous in other things, seem well to have understood the true character of this story of travel, for according to the majority of the manuscripts, the story purports to be nothing more than a religious novel. And footnote below, Bearing Gold, Curious Myths of the Middle Ages, London, 1866, page 236, as a reference. As a Celtic terrestrial paradise, Avalon was a sea-girt island in the waters of the north. It could of course be reached only by ship. The first to accomplish this feat, so far as Christian legend informs us, was Saint Brandan, son of Finlogho, a celebrated saint of the Irish Church, who died AD 576 or 577. According to the story of an angel brought to this good abbot a book from heaven, in which such marvellous things were narrated concerning the then unknown portions of the world, that the honest father charged both angel and book with falsehood, and in his righteous indignation burned the latter. As a punishment for his unbelief, God sentenced him to recover the book. He must search through hell and earth and sea until he finds the heavenly gift. The token given him by the angel is that when he sees two twin fires flame up, he shall know that they are the two eyes of a certain ox, and on the tongue of that ox he shall find the book. For 7 long years he sails the western and northern ocean. And footnote indication, Karl Schroeder, it's a reference to it, it's in German, looks like something and 3 German text, maybe, not too sure exactly what that says. Here he encounters more marvels than were recorded in the original incredible book, than is even permitted to visit the earthly paradise. The beauty of the soil, of the fountain with 4 streams, of the magnificent castle, and castle halls lighted with self-luminous stones, and adorned with all manner of precious jewels, surpass description. The stay of the party seems, however, to have been short, and unfortunately just where the island was located, the commander forgets to mention. How convenient. How inconvenient. A more elaborate and fanciful picture of the same medieval paradise is furnished us in the story of Oger or Holger, a Danish knight of the age of Charlemagne. In a plain prose rendering, this is the style in which a famous court minstrel of 600 years ago was accustomed to chant the adventure to admiring audiences. Carahu and Gloriande were in the boat with a fair company, and Oger had with him 1,000 men at arms. When they were a certain way on, there arose so mighty a tempest that they knew not what to do, only to commit their souls to God. So great was the storm that the mast of Oger's ship broke, and he was constrained to embark in a little vessel with a few of his comrades, and the wind struck them with such fury that they lost sight of Carahu. Carahu was so sore troubled that he was like to die. He was probably going to die. It was liking himself to die, basically. I think he's going to die. And he began to mourn the noble Oger, for his wish was not what became of that boat. Not too sure on that one. Maybe his wish. Not too sure. Oger, in like manner, lamented Carahu. This grieved Carahu and the Christians in his company, saying, "Alas, Oger, what has become of thee? This is, I ween, weird language. I guess it came to some that the most sudden departure he's ever heard of. He come to his idea that it was the most sudden departure that he ever heard of. Nay, but no, cease, my beloved, or his brother's way, or whoever, said Gloria, and he will not fail to come again when God wills, for he cannot be far away. Ah, lady, said Karahu, you know not the dangers of the sea. Okay, maybe it's his girlfriend or his wife or something comforting him. And I pray God to take him into his keeping. Now I will leave speaking of Karahu, unless that was a magical angel, a female angel or something. I must have missed something there. No, I will leave speaking of Karahu and return to Oga, who was an imperial yet was ever grieving for his friend, and saying, Ah, Karahu, hope of the remaining days of my life, thou whom I love next to God. How has God allowed me to lose so soon you and your lady? And at that moment the great ship in which Oga had left his men at arms struck against the rock, and he saw them all perish, at which sight he was likely to die of grief. And presently a lodestone rock began to draw towards it, the boat in which Oga was. Oga, seeing himself thus taken, recommended his soul to God, saying, My God, my Father and Creator, who hast made me in thine image and semblance, have pity on me now, and leave me not here to die. For that I have used my power as it was best to increase of the Catholic faith. But if it must be that thou take me, I commit to thy care my brother Gyu, and all my relatives and friends, especially my nephew Galtier, who is reminded to serve thee, and bring the paynim into the Holy Church. Is that like a payment? Some sort of coin or something? I'm not very sure. Ah, my God, have I known the peril of this adventure, I should never have abandoned the beauty, sense, and honour of Clarice, Queen of England. Was there a Clarice of England? Had I but gone back to her, I should have seen too my doubted sovereign Charlemagne, with all the princes who surrounded him. Charlemagne was a real person. Meanwhile, the boat continued to float upon the water till it reached the Lodestone Castle, which they call the Chateau d'Avalon, which is but a little way from the earthly paradise, whither were snatched in a beam of fire Elias and Enoch. Was he talking about Elijah and Enoch? And where was Morg Lafi, who at his birth had given him such great gifts. Then the mariners saw well that they were drawn near to the Lodestone rock, and they said to Oga, My Lord, commend thyself to God, for it is certain that at this moment we are come to our voyage's end. And as they spoke, the bark with a swing attached itself to the rock. That's probably like one of those poles, sail poles, right? Or mast, as though it was cemented there. That night Oga thought over the case in which he was, but he scarce could tell of what sort it might be. And the sailors came and said to Oga, My Lord, we are held here without remedy. You're stuck there, right? Without relief or any chance of aid or escaping, or aid, help. Wherefore let us look to our stores, for we are here for the remainder of our lives. To which Oga made answer, If this be so, then will I make consideration of our case, for I would assign to each one a share, to the least as to the greatest. For himself, Oga kept a double portion, for it is the law of the sea that the master of the ship has as much as two others. But if that rule had not been, he would still have needed a double quantity, for he ate as much as two common men. Quite neat, right? When Oga had a portion to share to each, he said, Masters, be spared, I pray you, of your food as much as you may, for so soon as ye have no more, to be sure that I myself will throw you into the sea. The skipper answered him, My Lord, thou wilt escape no better than we, right? Your chances of escaping no better than ours. Their food failed them all one after another, and Oga cast them into the sea, and he remained alone. Then he was so troubled that he knew not what to do. Alas, my God, my Creator, said he, hast thou at this hour forsaken me, or abandoned me? I have now no one to comfort me in my misfortune. Thereupon, whether it was his fantasy or not, it seemed to him that a voice replied, God orders that so soon as it be night, thou go to a castle after thou hast come to an island which thou wilt presently find. And when thou art on the island, or when you're on the island, thou wilt find a small path leading to the castle. And whatsoever thing thou seest there, whatever he saw, let not that affray thee, put them off, right, or sway him. And Oga looked, but he couldn't see who had spoken to him. Oga waited the return of night to learn the truth of that which the voice foretold, and he was so amazed that he had no idea what to do. but set himself to the trial. And when night came, he committed himself to God, praying him for mercy, and straight away, pretty much after that, he looked and beheld the castle of Emerald. He saw it, which shone wondrously. Many nights before he had seen it, but by day it was not visible. Howbeit, so soon as Ogur saw the castle, he set about to get there. He saw before him the ships that were fastened to the lodestone rock, and now he walked from ship to ship as so gained the island. Well, he gained footage on the island, and he jumped back and went across these ships, and maybe ended up back on the island, something along those lines. And when there, at once he set himself to scale the hill by a path which he found. When he reached the gate of the castle and sought to enter there, came before him two great lions, who stopped him and cast him to the ground. But Ogur sprang up and drew his sword, curtained and straightway cleft one of them in twain. Probably like a curtain, he cut them down the middle, cut them in half or something, split them in half, whatever, and straightway cleft one of them in twain. Weird old English. Yeah, he must have got one of them and cut him in two. Probably cut his head off or something. Then the other sprang and seized Ogur by the neck, and Ogur turned around and struck him off his head. There you go. Try to get him round the head, so he chopped this one's head off. When Ogur had performed this deed, he gave thanks to our Lord, and then he entered the hall of the castle, where he found many viands, and a table set as if one should dine there. Not too sure what viands are. But no prince nor lord could he see. There's no one else around. Now he was amazed to find no one, save only a horse, which sat at a table as if he had been a human being. Oh my gosh, a horse sitting at a table. This horse, which was called Pishon, psych? What does that supposed to mean? Is that what psych means? Waited upon Ogur, gave him... Was that a Greek reference or something? That's weird. Waited upon Ogur, gave him to drink from a golden goblet, and at length conducted him to his chamber, and to a bed whose very bad coverlet of cloth of gold, and ermine was la plus, and whatever that is in French. When Ogur awoke, he thought to see Papillon again, that horse, but could see neither him, nor man, nor woman to show him the way from the room. He saw a door, and having made the sign of the cross, sought to pass out that way, but as he tried to do this, he encountered a serpent so hideous that the like has rarely been seen. It would have thrown itself upon Ogur, but that the knight drew his sword and made the creature recoil more than 10 feet, and it returned with a bound, for it was very mighty, and the two fell to fight. And now as Ogur saw that the serpent pressed hard upon him, he struck it at it so daughtily with his sword, so much love and it's had to sound that very Buffer Brian, that lisping Caesar, brother Devil Brew, whatever it's called. But it returns, he's fighting it, and he cut it in two. After that, Ogur went along a path which led to him to a garden so beauteous, so beautiful that it was in truth a little paradise, and within were fair trees, nice trees, looking trees, good trees, bearing fruit of every kind, of diverse tastes, and of such sweet odours that he never smelt trees like that before. So he gave for odour as well. Ogur, seeing these fruits so fine, desired to eat some, and presently he lighted upon a fine apple tree, whose fruit was like gold, and of these apples he took one and ate. But no sooner had he thus eaten than he became so sick and weak that he had no power nor manhood left. So it's like a little wimp. And now again he, like a little wuss, and now again he commended his soul to God and prepared to die. But at this moment, turning round, he was aware of a fair dame clothed in white, and so richly adorned that she was a glory to behold, as Liv Tyler from Lord of the Rings and Avalon. Yeah, sure, okay. So it's getting a bit fantastical here, mythical, fairy-like. Now as Ogur looked upon the lady without moving from his place, he deemed that she was Mary the Virgin, and said, Ave Maria, and saluted her. But she said, Ogur, think not that I am she whom you fancy, or you who admire or something. I am she who was at your birth, and my name is Morga the Fee, and I allotted you a gift which was destined to increase your fame and eternity through all lands. But now you have left your deeds of war to take with ladies your solace, or sole purpose, or solely. For as soon as I have taken you from here, I will bring you to Avalon, where you will see the fairest noblesse in the world. And anon she gave him a ring, anonymously, maybe, secretly she gave him a ring, which had such virtue that Ogre, who was near 100 years old, returned to the age of 30. Okay, so he's living the life of that Benjamin guy, right? His life went backwards because of this gift. He got younger. Then said Ogre, Lady, I am more beholden to thee than to any other in the world. Blessed be the hour of thy birth, for without having done anything to deserve a reward at your hands, you have given me countless gifts, and this gift of new life above them all. Ah, Lady, that I were before Charlemagne, that he might see the condition in which I now stand, for I feel in me greater strength than I have ever known. Dearest, how can I make return for the honour and great good you have done me? But I swear that I am at your service all the days of my life. Then Morg took him by the hand and said, My loyal friend, the goal of all my happiness, I will now lead you to my palace in Avalon, where you will see of noblest the greatest and damosels of the fairest. Probably the hottest kind of dams was around. Probably fair skinned or something. And she took Ogre by the hand and led him to the castle of Avalon, where was King Artus and Alberon and Melambron, who was a sea fairy. Oh, it's getting a bit fantastical here. As Ogre approached the castle, the fairies came to meet him, dancing and singing marvellously sweet, and he saw many fairy dames, richly crowned, and I probably can hear people in the background, subscribers laughing about this. Oh my gosh, it's all mythical fairy tale. How could this be? And presently came Arthur, and Morg called to him and said, Come hither, or come here, my lord and brother, and salute the fair flower of chivalry, thy honour of the French noblesse, him in whom all generosity and honour and every virtue are lodged, Ogre le Danois, my loyal love, my only pleasure, in whom lies for me all hope of happiness. Then Morg gave Ogre a crown to wear, which was so rich that none here could count its value, and it had beside a wondrous virtue, for every man who bore it on his brow forgot all sorrow and sadness and melancholy, and he thought no more of this country, nor of his kin that he left behind him in the wood. We leave Ogre thus bien assis et entretenu de dame, and return to the earth where things were not going so well. Here's something in French. For while Ogre was in Fairy, the Paynim assembled all their forces and took Jerusalem. So when he was with these fairies, etc., they took Jerusalem and proceeded to lay siege to Babylon. That is Cairo. This sounds too far-fetched. Then the most valiant knights who were left on earth, Moisant and Florian and Caraho and Gautier, Ogre's nephew, assembled all their powers to defend this place. But they lamented greatly because Ogre was no more, and a great battle, it just wasn't around or something. But they lamented greatly because Ogre was no more, and a great battle took place without the walls of, well, probably within the walls of Babylon, without, around it, right? In which the Saracens, those are like a type of Mohammedans, led by Saracen, assisted by renegade the Admiral Gantes, gained the victory. Ogre had been long in the castle of Avalon and had begotten a son by Morg. Okay, so it gets with this lady, this being, this heavenly being or something, and has a child. When she, having heard of these doings and of the danger to Christendom, deemed it needful to awake Ogre from his blissful forgetfulness of all earthly things, and tell him that his presence was needed in this world once more. Thereupon follows an account of Ogre's returning to earth, where no one knows him, and all were astonished at his strange garb and bearing, or his weird looking clothing, and his probably his countenance, right? He's probably glowing or something, or that he was younger or something like that. He inquired for Charlemagne, who had been long since dead. The generation below Ogre had grown to be old men, yet he still had the habit of a man of 30. And that's what they were amazed at. We need not wonder that his talk excited suspicion, but at length he made himself known to the King of France, joined his army, and put the pagan to flight. Some sort of enemy, right? He had now forgotten his life in Fairy. He was beloved by the Queen of France, the King having been killed, and was about to marry her when Morg again appeared and carried him off to Avalon. Well, that's her man, so how dare you? She takes him away, right? Got a child to him. I guess any woman would do that. They loved him, loved someone like that so much, blah blah blah. Looking back over this long story to see just where it locates its paradise and how one could get there, we find the data extremely few and discouraging. Yeah, we found it too fanciful, too mythical, too fantasy orientated, right? And the oldest story in Plutarch. Okay. She carried him off to Avalon. Here's a footnote here that we missed. From Curious Outlines of Primitive Beliefs, paragraph 452 to 458. He remarks, the account which I here translate is only a 16th century version of the tale. It's basically what it is, it's a tale. But it is copied directly from the poetic version of the well-known troubadour Adonais, chief minstrel at the court of Henry III of Bavaria, 1248 to 1261. And for his excellence in his art called Le Roi, or King of All. There can be no doubt that in its chief particulars the story is far older than the days of Ardennes. Okay, so looking back over this long story to see just where it locates its paradise and how one could get there, we find the data extremely few and discouraging. And the older story in Plutarch respecting the same Isle of Blessedness is not less destitute of indications as to exact locality. And down here in the footnote, on the face appearing in the orb of the moon, section 26, Plutarch's Morals, Goodwin's edition, volume 5, page 201. Going some centuries farther back, we find another traveller who claims to have been in the terrestrial paradise. He says, as I looked towards the north over the mountains, I saw 7 mountains full of precious balsam and odorous trees and cinnamon and pepper. And from thence I went over the summits of these mountains far towards the east and passed on still farther over the sea and came far beyond. And I came into the garden of righteousness and saw a many-coloured crowd of trees of every kind, for many and great trees flourish there, very noble and lovely, and the tree of wisdom, which gives wisdom to anyone who eats of it. It is like the Johannes bread tree. What's it called? John's breadfruit? Something like that. Its fruit is like a cluster of grapes. Very good. And maybe they're talking about John's wort. No, that's a plant, isn't it? Not too sure. It's like the Johannes bread tree. Its fruit is like a cluster of grapes. Very good. And the fragrance of the tree spreads far around. And I said, fair is this tree, and how beautiful and ravishing it looks. And the holy angel Raphael, who was with me, answered and said to me, this is the tree of the wisdom of which thy forefathers, thy hoary first parent, and thy age first mother ate, and found the knowledge of wisdom, and their eyes were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and were driven out of the garden.